gone. Gaelic, the language of the Goidelic Kingdom, was more than just talking. It was like a cultural fortress. While other old languages faded out, Gaelic survived invasions and famines, fiercely protected by the people who spoke it. Outsiders found it almost impossible to figure out, making it a shield for Goidelic identity. The language itself was built to tell stories, with tons of words for the rhythm that sounds like the land itself. Losing Gaelic would have meant losing the whole way of seeing the world. Even today, you can hear its echoes in Irish and Scottish neighbors, a quiet sign of how they resisted. Gaelic survival is a story of fighting back culture, and a reminder that their words still color the world centuries later. In the Goidelic Kingdom, law and poetry were like two peas in a pod. The Brecon laws were memorized and recited by court judges called Fili, making justice easy to remember and understand. Legal fights weren't settled by dusty books, but by verses that everyone could get. These poet judges were like the society's memory banks, sorting out everything from land disputes to insults with wisdom and rhyme. History and law were epic sagas, not boring old records. Everyone knew the stories that shaped their world. This system made law flexible and deeply connected to tradition. By putting justice in poetry, the Goidelic people made sure their values lived on. Their laws were just as much about inspiring people as they were about keeping order. Maybe the poetry in its roots. For them, law was a living art, and every judgment was a story. Becoming a Goidelic king wasn't just about being born into the right family. You had to earn it every step of the way. Bloodlines mattered, but they were only the beginning of the story. To even be considered, you had to prove yourself worthy in the eyes of your people and your rivals. Candidates had to be fierce warriors, able to lead in battle, inspire courage, and get people to follow them into the unknown. It wasn't enough to just swing a sword. You had to command respect, loyalty, and sometimes even fear. Appearance played a surprisingly big role too. Looking good mattered. A king with a physical flaw or blemish was seen as a bad omen for the land, a sign that the kingdom itself might be cursed or weakened. The king's health and vitality were believed to be directly tied to the well-being of the kingdom. If the king was strong and healthy, the land would flourish, crops would grow, animals would thrive, and the people would prosper. But being strong and good-looking wasn't enough. The role demanded much more than just physical presence or charm. A real king needed fur flathamen. That's ruler's truth. This meant justice, wisdom, and generosity. He had to be fair in judgment, wise in counsel, and generous to his people, rewarding loyalty and protecting the weak. If he ruled well, the land would thrive. If not, disaster would follow. The king's actions were believed to shape the fate of everyone, from the richest noble to the poorest farmer. Being king was a sacred trust, not just a fancy title. Rituals and ceremonies marked his rule, reminding everyone that his power came with heavy responsibilities. The pressure was wild. One wrong move, and both the king and the kingdom could fall apart. Every decision was watched, every mistake magnified. In the Goidelic world, leadership was earned, not just given to you. The king had to constantly prove himself, both in peace and in war. The king was the living connection between the people, the land, and the legends. He was expected to embody the spirit of the nation, carrying its hopes and dreams. His time on the throne was like a performance where everything was on the line. His legacy, his people, and the very soul of the kingdom itself. The idea of Goidelic king. Picture a warrior whose strength, honor, and not just a fighter, but a protector, looking out for his people above all. Family lines matter. You had to earn your worth through what you did, not just in your inside. The other day, the journey of facing tough times, shows how the Goidelic king was justice and he was the story everyone wanted to follow. The Goidelic military wasn't like a regular army that just stood around waiting for orders or marching in perfect line. Instead, it was a living conflict was a test of bravery and skill, not just a grab for land or wealth. Warriors would announce their names and family lines before fighting, turning every clash into a legend. This wasn't just about winning, it was about making a mark. Heroic tales like those of Mulan weren't just stories, they were like training wheels. Young warriors learned from these legends, drawing inspiration and guidance from their own battles. The highest honor was dying a hero, your name sung forever. Songs and stories kept the memory of the brave alive, inspiring future generations to live up to their dreams. This culture still lives in fighting, brotherhood and trust forged in battle. Every victory was shared. The Goidelic warrior spirit became life, not just a job. Training, storytelling, and readiness for battle were part of daily existence, shaping the identity of every community. Every man was both a farmer and a fighter, always prepared to defend his land, his family, and his honor. And every battle was a story waiting to be told, echoing through the ages in song and legend, ensuring that the spirit of the Goidelic warrior would never be forgotten. Before teaching